Welcome back to Fearlessly Authentic. I am your host, Jody Harrison Bauer, and I am so excited to introduce this next guest to you. Before I get started and introduce her to you, this show is about being courageous, and it's also about living in your truest form so you can be the happiest that you can ever be in life. And it's being completely honest with yourself about what fulfills you, what lights you up, what turns you on, what really excites you in life. And I've met so many people that I've interviewed so far that have excited me, and I've learned from them. And the whole idea behind this show is to empower and inspire other listeners so you can take something away from this. And so my guest that I have on the show today is somebody I've known since she was 5 days old. And I have watched her journey through life. She will be 31 this month. And watching her during being truly in love, during heartbreaks, nursery school, everything, and playing with her bestest friend in the world, her sidekick for her whole life, I think who is actually my daughter, Alyssa. And so I want to introduce to you Alivia Barker, who I just really appreciate you coming onto the show, sharing your story about being courageous and living with integrity and, really trusting your gut and your heart and going through some tough times that maybe a lot of women your age have gone through and maybe can't be that honest with themselves or don't know it's even happening to themselves or don't understand. But at the end of the day, this story is about love. And it's about Alivia falling in love 2 years ago with another woman. And if you asked her if that was going to be her story in life or where she is right now, she would probably tell you, I don't know, but this is how it happened. So Alivia, welcome.
Hi, Jody. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I am so excited to have you. I just want to mention that we do have a little munchkin also on the show that will pop in from time to time, and that is your best friend, my daughter, Alyssa Harrison Mangs, who was just recently married in November. And I know that it was important for you to have her on the show with you, sort of maybe as a little bit of confidence, but maybe because she has gone through so much with you. And, there's a lot of stuff I don't know because, again, there were things I found out later in high school and so on and so forth. But there's been a lot of peaks and valleys, but we're in a good place right now. And even though, everything in the world is a little crazy right now, I want to focus on love and I want to focus on being truthful and feeling right in your space. And the one last thing I'm going to say before I start asking you questions is that this forever state of whatever fearlessly authentic it may be to you or my daughters or to anybody who's listening, male or female, that it's forever evolving. We are fearlessly authentic and then we become more fearlessly authentic. And it's like that whole, I know for myself, I want to be evolving until the day I die, because we're not living if we're not learning. So I'd love for you to start. How did you meet Morgan?
Well, Jody,
who is Morgan?
So Morgan is my girlfriend. We've been dating since December 15th of 2018.
I love it.
I know the date specifically because that was the day that I moved my life from suburbia in Connecticut, where I had been living with a boyfriend for 6 years. I grabbed all my stuff and decided I got to get out of Connecticut. I need to spread my wings, and I went to New York City. However, I did not meet Morgan on that day.
So I'm going to interrupt you. Yeah. The purpose of moving to New York from Connecticut, had you lived in Connecticut your whole life?
So no, I had actually lived in New York prior. I lived with Alyssa for many years. Those were.
I remember that apartment.
Yes, very, very small apartment.
Yes.
But then as time went on, I was in a relationship
Mm-hmm.
with a very nice guy, great guy, and we, as things progressed, he got a job in Connecticut, and I moved along with him.
I see.
I felt like my life was a series of shoulds. My
Oh.
boyfriend got a job in Greenwich. Should I move with him? Should I do this? Should I do that? A therapist actually once told me, Liv, you have to stop shoulding all over yourself.
Mm.
And that sat heavily with me. So when it came time for me to, when I did end that relationship and started to think, what's next for me?
Mm.
The world was my oyster.
Right.
But I did have many roots in New York City, friendship, I had business connections, et cetera, et cetera. Plus, it's close to home. I'm from
Right.
Connecticut, for the listeners. And I chose New York City. And then, so to answer your initial question, I met Morgan that first night that I moved into the city. However, Morgan
Wow.
and I actually had known each other since we were about 10 years old.
Wow.
We were friends, and we went to summer camp together for many years.
Wow. I love that. That's so cool. So you were friends in camp when you were little kids.
Totally.
And
We were in different divisions, so we weren't really forced
was she
together as
is
friends.
she an older girl?
I'm the cougar. She's a year younger.
Okay.
But I'll tell you, there was always a magnetic thing there, like I'd say an attraction, but I didn't know what it was. I just liked being around her. She's a twin, and people sometimes tend to, when you're young, you say, which twin do you like better? Which twin is this or that? I always chose Morgan.
Okay.
And then that first night that we kind of reconnected, December 15th, 2018, the connection was instant.
So let me ask you a question. So you reconnect after how many years? After
Around,
15?
it had really been 8 years since we had last spoken, 12 years since we had been really friends.
So you mentioned that connection. So you have a connection with Alyssa. You have a connection with a lot of women. So what was different? Was it different when you reunited in New York? Was it after being in several relationships throughout your 30 years or whenever you met Morgan? So you were 28 years old. So in that 28-year span of having different relationships with men, and what do you think it was? Do you think your heart was more open? What do you think led you there? Because you must have been pretty vulnerable also, because you had just broken up with somebody.
Very well said about everything that you said. I just want to say yes. What was it? It was her eyes. It was her confidence. And it was already knowing the person. I tend to fall for the person historically.
The person, what do you mean? The person, like the personality?
The personality, the heart, their character. For me, it's not about what is on the outside. Typically, in my past, of course, we could nitpick and find plenty of times where that's not the case.
Right.
Maybe just a couple times. But
that's okay.
The truth is, it was her eyes. It was just a sense of comfort with this person, and we spent the whole night talking, and we were on the same wavelength about many topics regarding life. And I just felt like I was and am myself. And I hadn't been that self for a long time. So feeling that I was
authentically
myself, authentically me, thank you, was so rewarding. And it just it highlighted my feelings for Morgan and my attraction to her.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think that as we grow older, we become more in touch. We hope to become more in touch with our feelings, because the end result is, I know from what I wish for my daughters is that whoever they decide to spend the rest of their life with, whatever significant other that will be, ever shape, form, or whatever, that they can be themselves. And my dad, as you knew him, Stan the man, would say to me after I got divorced, Jody, you need to find somebody who loves you, warts and all. And what he was trying to say to me was somebody who loves you for who you are, for that girl that, my dad always used to remind me that when I was in high school, I would go down the staircase, ba-dum, 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 other than my two younger sisters. And that was something that was a beautiful memory for him when I went off to college. So it's finding that place where you can be you and live there. And sometimes we do end up with people that accept us for exactly who we are, but maybe they don't make us, light up. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But it sounds like all of those things were aligned, like you guys were super aligned.
Yes, exactly. And to your point about wanting to be in a place where I am me and live there, it was also and has been also incredible to not only be able to be myself, but be able to grow. And like you were mentioning in the beginning of the show, it's ever evolving,
Yes.
this sense of self, learning about who I am. And what more could one ask for than to have a partner to go along that ride with you?
Yeah, I totally agree. We all want that in our life. And I assume that's, why you moved on from the other relationship and why I moved on from my marriage, because you can't be who you are. And if you can't be who you are, then you can't be the best version of yourself to your partner, to the people in your life, your family. I know you don't have any children as of this point that you know of. But, for me, one of the reasons that I had to change my family dynamics was because I wanted to be the best version of myself for my daughters. So I had a purpose there. But for you, it was you kind of were like, I got to take this on myself. Like this is on me, and this just feels right. And I love that it just feels right, and you went with it. So what did your family say when you told them? You were like, hey, you remember Morgan from camp?
Basically, they didn't even know Morgan, but they were familiar with her family.
Mm-hmm.
I had mentioned she has a clothing line, and I had brought my mom into the store like 7 years ago. So my parents were vaguely familiar with them. What did they say? My mom asked, was it weird to kiss a girl? And my dad made a joke, as JR does.
Yes, yes.
And it was a sweet joke, and they both were very happy for me and proud of me, because as anyone can attest to, it's a little scary sometimes to step outside of the box that you've been in forever.
So this box that we all find ourselves in, and we grow up in a certain way, and we find ourselves trying to, you and I have talked about being pleasers. We're both firstborn of 3 children. I'm the oldest of 3 girls. You're the oldest. You have 2 younger brothers. So a little different family dynamics, but still being the oldest. And I don't know if that's a pleaser thing, being the oldest child. Alyssa, maybe you can talk about that.
Google it.
Yeah, we'll have to Google it. I probably haven't, just didn't remember. But anyway, did you feel a need to, you told your parents, were you nervous about it because of that box that maybe your family had expectations like Alivia is this, Alivia is that, even growing up, your parents were always so proud of you, and you were always that. You're a gorgeous young woman right now, but you were always a beautiful little girl who was very curious, was very curious about everything. And your parents were sort of like, they were a little different than Alyssa's parents, me and her father. We were more conservative, and Jer and Deb were a little bit more like, 60s babe, let them do whatever they want, kind of, sort of. And so you had a little bit more freedom in that box than
Mhm.
maybe others did. But even so, you felt like your parents had certain expectations. I mean, that's normal.
Right. And it's not just the parents too. It's, as you say, it's society. It's
Mm-hmm.
my friends. It's really the world. The ads on social media,
Yes.
everything around you can box you in and make you believe that you only have this one path,
This one option.
one option. I remember when I was in my previous relationship, which was a very nice relationship with a
Mm-hmm.
wonderful human being. But I felt stuck, and I felt like I was unable to see the future in general,
Mm-hmm.
um, because I just couldn't see a future with that person.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's nothing against that person. It's just I didn't feel like I was able to grow in that space. I didn't feel like I was truly me.
I love that you keep talking about growing in that space. I think that's such an important point. I mean, I'm learning from you right now that growing in that space, it's huge, huge. So for everybody listening, this is huge. Make sure that wherever you are, whatever type of relationship you are, that the person you've aligned yourself with to live the rest of your life with, or that you're in a relationship with, that you can grow within that space. Oh my goodness, like I just love that. And so you feel like you have all of this space to grow. Is this like the first time you've ever felt this way?
It is, Jody. It really,
I
really
love
is.
it.
I mean, I it's the littlest things. And so, by the way, I've been kind of trying out meditation and
Mhm.
gratitude, more so gratitude practices.
Good.
I need you to teach me how to
Okay,
really meditate.
we'll work on that.
But in terms of the gratitude, it allows me to reflect on the great things that I have. And when I look at the end of each day, or at the start of each morning, I look back at kind of the last 24 hours to
Mhm.
reflect on what I've done, what's occurred around me, etc. And so, for example, yesterday, I
Mhm.
did something so out of my old box.
Okay.
I I told you my girlfriend Morgan has a clothing business. She has a
Yes.
store and a website. I modeled the clothes for
Woo.
a video and photo shoot. Now, listen, I'm not going to say that I don't like the camera. Liz is laughing because we love the camera, and we've always wanted to have our own reality show, and but
Mary Kate and Ashley.
American Ashley. This was so much fun, and it was just something that in my former box I never had the guts. I was fearful as ever to even try to get in front of a camera or put myself out there in front of people in general.
Mhm.
I'm sure you know that feeling, Jody, from starting out all of this fearlessly authentic empire that you've built. Um, it's scary at first. Anyway, so yesterday I did it, and it
I
was so
love that.
fun. And
I
with
love
my
that because
friends.
you can't grow in that space without getting uncomfortable, being comfortable with, first,
Yes.
it's always that uncomfortableness and getting comfortable in that uncomfortable space. And then once you become comfortable, that's how you grow is, okay, what's the next space? What's the next space? Or what's the next adventure or whatever it is? But the fact that you're in a relationship where you feel that you have that space to grow is enormous. And it's a huge, huge lesson for men and women to understand in any relationship that they're in. So you told your parents,
Right.
dad made a cute, loving joke. Mom asked you the question.
And I do want to say, may I interrupt for one moment? I am so grateful that I have parents who were and are beyond accepting.
They are.
Um, I have many friends that I've made through Morgan, lesbians, gay friends, etc., who have been in relationships with someone of the same sex for years. I have a friend who's married,
Mm-hmm.
and her parents are still not accepting of her relationship and of her whom she loves. And I just feel
I'm
grateful. And on top of that, my best friend.
So I want to give a shout out to Deb
Yeah.
and Jer. You are a cool couple, and I knew, when I found out from Alyssa, I got the text from Alyssa. So Alyssa, I knew Deb and Jer would be cool. I knew you would be cool, but I had no idea. Like, I had no idea any of this was going on. I knew Olivia had moved to New York, and so Alyssa, how did you feel, and what happened? Alyssa, how did Olivia tell you this?
To be fair, I had no idea this was happening either. She moved back to New York.
I had no idea this was happening either.
Okay.
And I think, Mom, I told you, like, as soon as it happened. I think I probably said to Liv, I got to tell my mom. And honestly, so the way Liv told me, we've been best friends since we were born. We're 15 days apart. We lived 3 houses down from each other. We were completely inseparable and still are, even though we live in different states now. And Liv was supposed to come down to Miami because that's where my husband and I live.
Mm-hmm.
Weird to still say husband.
Still new. You're still a newlywed.
She flew down for New Year's. We were excited to see her. She came down, and when she arrived, we dropped her stuff in the apartment, went down to the pool, and she was like, I have something to tell you. And I was like, this is weird. What, like?
We never start a sentence with that because we talk to each other all day, every day. That there's never something to tell because
Like,
it's
right. That makes
so
sense.
I looked at her and was like, what? You're being weird. You're making me like nervous.
You're making me uncomfortable.
And I can remember specifically her saying, hold on one second, let me go get drinks. She got up and she went to go get us, I think, 2 Bloody Marys.
No, she's in Miami with you.
She's in Miami with me, sitting by my pool at my apartment building.
Okay.
And she comes back and she comes down and she basically, if I can remember correctly, she just said to me, so I'm dating a girl. And I was like, what? Speechless, completely speechless, not because of anything negative whatsoever. Mm-hmm. More so, I watched her and was with her for 6 years of her relationship and knew what kind of headspace she was in. Mm-hmm. Knew that she had, of course, moved back to New York, and I was just so caught off guard. And so when I finally was able to get the words, I jumped up and gave her a hug immediately. And was just like,
because you were happy.
Because I was happy that she was telling me this happily.
Okay.
Like, I could see it in her face when she told me that she was genuinely happy. And going back to the being a pleaser, which I am as well, but with Liv, she always has wanted to please people and tended and can sometimes still, but Morgan's been fantastic for her to kind of
get Morgan. I love Morgan. We all love Morgan.
And, and Liv,
hey, Morgan.
Shout out. And I was just shocked that she was happy and that this all happened so quickly. And I had a million questions. And I will say the first question I had, which was the only weird question I had, was, I want to make sure that, this is amazing, but are you okay? Do you need some space before you jump into something so quickly? Mm-hmm. And then when she said, this just feels right, all I want for my best friend and for anyone I love in my life to be happy. Mm-hmm. And to see her find that happipiness made me the happiest person ever. And we spent that night after we got back from going out. We stayed up until 4, 5 a.m. talking and just crying. Hysterically. I was finally just able to tell her, this is all I wanted for her.
Mm-hmm. So you were super supportive, of course, because I knew you texted me right away, you're not going to believe what's going on.
There's nothing she could do in her life that would make me upset if it was something that benefited her.
Right. So you saw that she was really so happy, a happiness that you had never seen in her.
Yeah, I saw her in not the best space for a while and wanting to always please everyone else around her. And she was finally doing something for herself that felt right, made her happy. And that's all I wanted. And since that day, of course, I've been supportive. And I can honestly say I believe that everyone in her life has been.
I think so too.
And she's very lucky for that. Of course, we all know that.
Amen.
Yes, Olivia, you do have a great support system. And I think I want to talk about that support system and what it was like to kind of move into that different, a different world, after being with Morgan, falling in love, and you're like, okay, so what's next?
A whole new world.
What's next? So when we're going to go to a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about your new life with Morgan. And so thank you so much for sharing, and we'll be back in a few minutes.
Thank you, guys.
All right, great first segment. All clear?
I messed up.
What happens now? Okay, we can talk.
So we're going to come back. We had a 1 minute break, so I just wanted to cut it short.
I lost my train of thought. Sorry, during when I was talking.
That was all very good. So
I did too, a million times. Okay.
When we come back,
you guys were great.
You were amazing.
340. Yeah, you guys are both being very, very good. Awesome. So we broke it. There was a 26 minutes in. Okay. When we come back, I want to talk about, Alyssa, you were perfect talking about support system. And Olivia, I'm going to go straight into it and say, so how do you identify yourself now in the gay, lesbian,
you say correctly.
I'm going to say, I don't want to go into LGBTQ2. I can't.
Think that's what you should say. I mean, Liv.
You could say in the queer community, but I know that word is hard for you.
What would you rather I use? What would you rather I use?
You could just say in Morgan's community.
Why don't you write it down in LGBT?
I'm going to say, let me write all these words down.
Ask Liv exactly, because
I got them from Aunt Sharon.
Okay, good, even better.
From the
I know when Sharon texted me, I was like, oh, that's so cute. Mom texted her.
Yeah.
So all right, Jody, I just finished saving. I am ready whenever you guys are.
Okay. We are ready to go.
All right, here we go. Final segment, 26 minutes in 4, 3, 2.
Hey, we are back with Alivia Barker talking about falling in love with a woman for the first time at 28 years old and living in the space that she has finally wanted to live in and being the woman that she wants to be. Such a beautiful story, having the support of her best friend, Alyssa, who is also on the line in this interview with us, as well as her family's support. So Olivia, I wanted to ask you, what has changed in your life? Are you now a part of the LGBTQ community? How do you identify yourself and what's changed in your life?
So I do not identify as a lesbian. The reason is that I've never found myself attracted to another woman, any women, except for Morgan. Maybe a few along the way that I've realized looking back, and I've told lists as they pop up. But I just think that I'm in love with Morgan. So while I may not identify as a lesbian, I certainly, one might say bisexual, I might say bisexual and or queer, which kind of covers all of that. But then in terms of community, it was the craziest thing. And Liz knows how it feels too, because last year, for example, during my first ever Pride parade in New York City, my best friend, all right, so this is my first Pride parade after falling in love with a woman and kind of shifting all gears in my life. And
so you're embracing this new community?
Oh, embracing it, loving it.
Okay.
Feeling so welcome. Community is, just having a sense of community is a wonderful thing. And I think that unfortunately, many people may not find it easy to get into a community. It's not easy because you need to really feel like you're in it. And I was nervous that I wouldn't feel accepted or that other
Maybe.
lesbians may look at me as being a lesser lesbian or something.
Is there
along those
something, you know, and I want to talk about that for a second.
Sure.
So I like how you have the confidence and the self-awareness of how you're identifying yourself. And I mean, we all give ourselves some type of identity. And so how did Morgan feel about that? Was she cool about it? Was she like, yeah, this is fine. You know, I'm in love with you. You're in love with me. Like, we don't need to identify ourselves in society, because that's where that box comes in, to boxing us in.
Yes, well said. Mind blown. Seriously. Yes, Morgan was completely on the same page with me. I love you. You
Be
love
you.
me. Yes, I love you for who you are. And that's it.
That's
End of
great.
story.
I will say, I'm chiming in here, Morgan's group of girlfriends that happen to all be lesbians are like a bunch of like amazing, smart, driven, like successful girls, and like
Sweet.
and it was intimidating, and Liv will go into that.
Oh, it was intimidating?
Yeah, so I will say,
too.
Interesting. Okay.
thank you, Liz. So yeah, so it was definitely intimidating at first. Again, going back to this sense of, do I have what it takes to fit in with this community? Some crazy thing, that fear was going off in my head.
Wow.
But then,
I had no idea.
yeah, there was definitely a sense of fear there, you know, going out at night, meeting up with the girls.
Mm-hmm.
It was nerve-wracking. And at a certain point, I had to, and looking back, what I did was forget everything and reset, which I had learned from you, Jody. And but it really, I took a step back and I said, these are people.
Right.
I am a person. They love me.
Mm-hmm.
I really, really want to become closer with them. I just need to open up and, again, let people in, let them in, be myself. And as soon as I did that, and may I say that I think that Alyssa coming up to Pride, to be there with me for my first ever Pride parade,
To kind of hold your hand.
to hold my hand and be supportive, an ally. She's an ally through and through. And Lexi, your youngest daughter, came
little one.
too. I mean, and another one of our best friends came. I mean, how much more supported could one get? I felt so supported, and that gave me the confidence and I saw how much they embraced and loved Liz.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm looking at it from a third party perspective.
You were nervous.
Yeah, you were nervous.
Yeah.
I was there, intimidating. They're all super cool. They're all really pretty. And they're all like, Liv was like, oh, here, this model and this. And I'm like, this is the coolest group of people. Like, well, I get why you were intimidated to begin with. And then I was like, well, I'm the straight best friend coming in. Like, what are they going to think of me? And Lexi, though. Are they going to embrace us just as much?
Right.
And they did.
Right.
Because unfortunately, what we do, and we can all recognize this in ourselves, but it's easier to recognize it in someone else, is we talk down ourselves. We don't give ourselves enough credit. So for example, like Liz just said, oh, they're the models, they run hospitals, blah, 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 and I'm just the straight best friend. Mm-hmm. No, you are the top of the line, straight best friend in my world, my everything. But that's my point. So I was doing that to myself too. Right. I was saying, what do I really have to bring to the table? And I was
and who would have ever thought that making that shift would be an intimidating thing, and thinking of the community. And it is a very strong community. And you know, my sister, I have a little story about my family, is that my sister, who is just a few years younger than me, she didn't come out until she was 40 years old. She's been with her wife. They've been married for about five or 6 years, but they've been together for 16 years. And they just celebrated an anniversary. So, you know, I applaud her for having the strength to come out, and I feel bad that she stayed in that box for so many years. And that was probably a generational thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then leading the way to women like you who are embracing and finding the strength within and to stand in your truth to say, this is where I feel good. This is where I want to be. And once your friends see it, they're like, yeah, like I want you to be happy. That's when you know
Yes.
who your friends are, because it's enough of living in a boxed in world. You know, it's where you need to find that freedom.
And look at your sister now. Aunt Sharon is the happiest, most confident. I mean,
Yes.
she found herself, and that is so, it was so wonderful and uplifting to see. And so I can kind of look at that, and to realize that that's what my friends see happening with me, makes my heart all warm and fuzzy.
Yeah, it is. And so in the community, so now you're in this whole new community,
Mm-hmm.
and it feels right.
It feels right.
Mm-hmm.
Being myself feels right. Which we have kind of two selves, right? We have our self that we show, we have our self that's, you know, when we lay in bed at night, our thoughts in our head, but then we have the self that we project to the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I finally found those two aligning,
Mm-hmm.
which was crazy.
Yeah, because never had that happen to you before.
No, never.
And how did that make you feel?
It was at first almost mind-boggling to
Mm-hmm.
wrap my head around the fact that I'm like, Liv, you can continue to be yourself, and these people will love you, and yourself is cool and interesting, and you have these amazing friends, and really, it just made me feel whole.
So what kind of advice do you have for other women or men out there who might be struggling from within? You didn't even realize it was a struggle. I think that, I mean, I think your struggle was, how do I find somebody that makes me feel, not make me feel, I don't like to use that word, but I want to find a partner in life. We
Right.
all want to find partners in life, that somebody we can fall in love with, somebody we can laugh with, somebody who just makes us feel wonderful. So we're all looking to share our life with somebody. So whoever that person is, in this particular case, it's Morgan, what would you say to people that are struggling and think that, oh, I need to stay here?
I would say to really take a step back and look at your life, and look at what you do have, what brings you happiness, and what doesn't bring you happiness. And some of that may be things that you're hanging on to just because they're safe or comfortable. That's why you may be staying in this place. Do you feel stuck? Okay. And face that fear.
Mm-hmm.
And make that change, and let life happen to you. Let life happen. Go out there and meet people. And if you're struggling with feelings of, I think I like someone of the same sex, but I don't know if anyone around me will accept this.
Right.
How do you know?
Right.
How do you know that they won't accept you? And by the way, if you aren't accepting yourself, how will anyone else ever accept you? If you aren't proud of who you are, how can anyone else truly be proud of you?
But that takes a lot of courage. Okay. So you don't realize how courageous you were in just going with those feelings. And I think it was, you know, I think deep inside you knew that you would have a supportive community around you, namely your family and your close friends. So I think there was safety in that. And I think that's important for people who do feel stuck. And we know that when we feel stuck, the only way to get out of stuckness is to take action. And we don't want to go backwards, you know,
Right.
We want to go forward in our life, and we want to learn from our mistakes. And one of the things I say a lot is that I don't have any regrets. I don't have one regret at all, because I've learned from everything that I've done, whether it's good or bad.
And it's brought you to this place
Right.
where you are so fearlessly, authentically Jody. Alyssa, same for you. For me, exactly the same. But I couldn't say that 2 years ago about myself. I was a lost soul. And I appreciate you saying that it takes a lot of courage, because I think that sometimes it's easier to recognize that in someone else than it is to recognize it in yourself. But I do look back and realize that I was courageous, and I had to trust. I had to trust myself and my own feelings. I had to trust my gut, because my gut was pulling me toward this girl. My gut was, listen, Morgan would have never made the first move. Okay.
I didn't know
All
that.
right. Well, listen,
The fact that
she respected, right. She had
I'd always been with men before.
Yeah. She had a crush on me, straight girlfriend crush for a while. And she would have never made the first move. So I had to do it.
So she respected that space you were in.
Yes.
See, isn't it funny how we're talking about space and boxes, and how we need to like step out of those boxes, and when we need to step out of those spaces, and we need to really, again, live in our true space, because that's where the happiness happens. That's where the creativity happens. That's where the growth happens. When we're stuck in a relationship that doesn't allow us to grow, then we don't grow. And it might be that person's insecurity. It might be your insecurity. It takes two to tango. So, when I hear people blaming another partner in a relationship for why it ended, it's never one person or the other, unless there's horrible things that happen in that relationship. But for the most part, it takes two to tango, and it's about your communication. So I want to ask you about that, given that this was a whole new world to you. I feel like the Aladdin song should be singing right now. It's a whole new world, because you guys used to watch that all the time.
Still love it.
So for all you millennials out there watching Aladdin, and it's a whole new world. So I think that it sounds like Morgan gave you that space to like breathe it in and understand it and ask questions, and
many questions. And along those lines, as I told my friends and those closest to me that I was now dating a woman, I gave them free rein. I go, ask as many questions as you want. And then it turned into, then, next thing I know, so Morgan and I started dating in December. So the following June, I'm on a bachelorette party with only like two of my best friends. And then it was one of their parties. So all these girls that I don't really know very well, we're sitting around, and I'm answering all their questions. And I'm really thinking, one of these girls could be struggling or just having similar thoughts. And it's just to let yourself be boxed in is unfair to you.
Wasn't it so freeing?
It was so freeing, Jody. It was
to just
so
be you. Say,
be
yeah,
me.
I'm in love with Morgan, and this is
No
where my
labels.
life, this is just where my path has taken me, because I decided to open up my heart and open up my mind, and not allow myself to think that I had to be something for somebody, or show up at my home to my parents with a certain type of person. And again, I applaud your parents for giving you, nobody's perfect, but for giving you that sense of freedom. And, you've always, like I said a while ago, you were always an inquisitive child. You were always curious. You always asked many questions, and you kind of always just led the way into what you wanted to do. And Alyssa followed you, and I'd be like, where are you going with Alivia right now? So the two of you caused a little bit of trouble when you were
just a little bit.
But, it's really beautiful to watch that you are learning so much about yourself, and that you do have that space.
And I think that also there's this newly found sense of agency, sense of I have control over my life, and that means something. Like I mentioned earlier in the show, my life prior to this had been a series of shoulds. I should complete high school. I should go to college. I should get a job. I should move here. I should do this because this person's doing that.
Mm-hmm.
never I want.
Mm-hmm. So you're finally doing I want.
Finally doing it. And I think that's a big, that's something that millennials in general face as a community, if you will. You know, our parents, our grandparents worked their butts off
Mm-hmm.
to you know, when they came here to the States to build businesses and provide for their families. And then our parents did the same, but in doing so, they really set us up for a life of, right, they set us ahead, a life of limited struggle.
Right.
I can't speak for everyone, but anyone who can relate will understand what I'm saying. So to get to a point where I now have to make my own decisions for my life, it was scary,
Mm-hmm.
but thankfully I had the support system of your daughter who
And doing what you wanted. So anybody listening right now who feels like they should be doing something, listen to Alivia right now. And instead of thinking that you should do something, do what you want. And it's not selfish. And this is the whole thing about self-love and
Amen.
self-care and self-soothe. This all comes down to finding that truest self, living in your truth and finding that fulfillment, because it's not always about the love and the passion. It's about fulfillment. And you have to get it from within. You're not going to get that. You're going to find the joy and the love and the compassion, empathy, passion from your relationship if it is all that you want. But to find that fulfillment, that's where that space to grow comes from, to finding that partner that you align with in mind, body, and soul, that where you have that safety net of growing and failing, you know, and being scared and walking over fear or embracing fear. And I'm sure you've gone through these things. Morgan has probably gone through these things too, and you've been there for her to maybe give her a different perspective. It's just a relationship. And you know, again, you know, I so appreciate you sharing and being so honest about the things that you thought that you should be. And you know, I want to go to Alyssa for a second and ask her, like, did you have any expectations of what you thought Alivia should be? Or were you just looking for, as her friend, you know, again, Alyssa, I've known you since you were born. So Alivia, did you ever think about the shoulds? I never asked you that question.
I never had, I would say, expectations of who she should be with. I mean, we've been friends forever. So of course there have been times where I've looked at her and been like, no, or what
Right.
best friends do. But
Right.
I guess, and I say this to you all the time, we know we're very lucky to have each other as well. But all we've ever wanted for each other is to be happy and to see that person that we've always known continue to be that person. And in Liv's most recent relationship before Morgan, like she said, a wonderful person, absolutely wonderful person, just wasn't right for Liv. But I saw her change completely. I saw her lose herself completely. And she didn't know at the time. She struggled a lot.
And that happens a lot in relationships, you know, that happened in my marriage. My daughter's right here to hear it. It happened in my marriage. I got lost, you know, and I didn't want that to happen to my daughters, and I wouldn't want it to happen to you, Alivia, or your brothers, or any of my friends. You know, you don't want them to get lost. You want them to stay true to who they are, because once you get lost in a relationship, oh my goodness, climbing out of that deep hole is so hard. And then once you climb out of that hole, you're like, okay, my head's above ground. Now what do I do? Did you ever feel that way, Alivia? And did you see that first, Liv? Did you ever feel that way?
Oh, I felt that way for a very long time. And Alyssa was there on the other end of the phone with me through it all. And it's not a good feeling. And I will say that, number one priority is you, but number two, or basically 1.5, is if you have a best friend. That is so important. Your friends are so important. We're talking about love and relationships here, but your best friend is the most valuable relationship. Keep your friends.
I love that.
So,
If they're good.
I love that.
If they're good people,
We're
do
going
not
to
tight to them. Do not take them for granted.
girlfriends,
So
girl
lucky.
power, friendship. I mean, not just
Friendship.
girls and guys.
Yeah.
So we're going to be wrapping up. We're going to be wrapping up in a few minutes. So, again, as I started out at the beginning of this show, I mentioned that it is about inspiring and empowering and being courageous and living with integrity and being fearlessly authentic. So I wanted to ask you, Alivia Renee Barker,
Yeah.
what does fearlessly authentic mean to you?
To me, fearlessly authentic means that you are the self that you show to the world is who you really feel inside. It's who you feel you are on the inside. And that's it. It's simple. And we screw ourselves up by complicating that, by overanalyzing.
Amen, girlfriend. I like that.
You know it, don't you?
I love that. Keep it simple. Stan used to say that all the time. KISS. Keep it simple,
keep it
stupid.
simple, stupid.
Yeah. So I absolutely love that. And June is Gay Pride Month.
Yes.
Yes, right on. It doesn't sound like there's probably going to be a parade this year in the city.
I know.
But if
it was supposed to be on Olivia's 31st birthday.
Oh,
I love it.
Well, we'll do it. Well, I'm sure some type of celebration will take place. But if people want to, since you have such a beautiful community, if people want to know more or they want to donate money in support of the LGBTQ community or GLAAD community, is there a place where people can go, or just to show their support for that community, which needs always support?
Always support. There are many, many, many places to which people can donate. And I think that while money is important, so is support, emotional support, showing
Yes.
up. I mean, we see what's happening right now with the Black Lives Matter protests, and what really matters and what really drives the message is the a number of people showing up and supporting, the allies, etc.
Exactly.
So,
I'm going to stop you here because we have 30 seconds left.
okay.
And I want to thank you so much for being on the show. Alyssa, thank you for being her sidekick and being her best friend.
Always
The two of you are beautiful. But Alivia, I want to just, I'm so proud of you for coming.
Cody, I'm so proud of you, and you are a hero to me. You are my hero, and I aim to emulate you, and I learn from you. And like you say, find someone you want to be like and emulate them. And thank you for the inspiration.
You are welcome. I love you. I'm very, very proud of you. And thank you so much for being on the show. And I will talk to you later. Thanks everybody for joining us. Bye-bye.